I hope my microphone is on. I had a bit of anxiety. I realized I didn't have any friends. And when I ain't got no friends and money in my pocket, that means I don't have nothing to do. So then I figured I better go to work. And for me, that means that I have to file papers, research, draft motions on my behalf where I thumb my way through the courts. It's a very complex system, the courts. I'm not so sure if it's always been complex or if in its simplistic form it was started during a time where there was racial tensions based on the only two races for me that I've acknowledged being in the United States, which was black and white at that time. I thought they were mostly European. And then as time went on, the British people kind of, Great Britain kind of left, and we had our independence declared at that point. Cleared, whatever you want to call it. It's the word game for me. That's when the United States became a 50 at that point. I thought conglomerate where two other states was added, making it 52 states. And I swear we had a debate on stars on that flag. I want to go stand under it and take a picture because I got on all white. I'm feeling godly today. I don't really want to be entertained. When I went to go take a shower this morning and I heard KMOJ and then Keith Ellison came on, it just felt like rape in the shower to me. Even though whatever he was talking about didn't have anything to do with me, I don't think. I don't think that the anxiety of Freddie Bell talking influenced my thoughts in any way, shape, or form, other than I thought, again, I felt tracked by a phone line where I thought that they could see everything I did, hear everything I did, which made me talk to myself out loud because a lot of times I thought they were listening at all times. So then I felt like I was talking to them. Specific to a person at times, which could have been P.D. Walker, also known to me as Keith Ellison, where him and Bobby Joe Champion, Don Samuels, has now got this group of people under Joe Biden and Barack, where I said that they had hired people under, where they were taught admin services to run these laptops that was given out by Summit Academy under what I consider to be a separation of education, where the black people were now under Ilhan Omar allowed like a treaty type of situation where the black people got to teach themselves. So the first thing I thought they were doing was degrading me sexually. That was the first thing I thought they were doing, attacking my gender as a black woman who didn't have attributes sufficient to what they considered to be a black woman's body shape. For me in America, they didn't really have a color to the body mass index. It was just a size per frame based on what I thought, chiropractors was saying a spine could carry comfortably, where a person at this height, this level should be according to their studies, of the spine, which didn't have a color other than white bone. I thought, white bone in everybody's body, that skeleton frame, where again, that's what they did the body mass index on, not per se a color, right? Because my mom said black women had big butts. She also said white women had big butts. She said if you researched it, you can see where, under the ideology of a stereotype, they were calling them wide asses white women with big butts, and some of the white men were telling them to lose their wide asses with their big butts. So they didn't really necessarily like a wide ass with a big butt. So then they designed corsets to control that. Black women didn't really use them in the sense that they did during that age. So then therefore we're not going to address whether or not we had to suck it up and suck it in because you was too busy eating fat back and hog maws in the back, so damn well your ass wasn't fitting in a corset. What you did do was use it as a body lace where, it was sex appeal and it did not suck in and, cause you to have like, lung issues because you couldn't breathe. Did you notice that some of them was having their ribs removed back then so that they could have this really, really skinny, perfect waist? And then they didn't have any ribs to support a frame. So then they were, just living off their spine, which was super dangerous. And they said women should not do that as a cosmetic surgery, remove ribs to make your waist smaller. What you could do is watch what you eat. So then they gave you like this, dietitian type of shit to do. So as they were, attacking me sexually, my gender, my size, then they said I didn't, screw right. And I ain't screwed in years. My legs were closed. And then I realized my cooch was drying up as it was, not being used. It was really getting coochie cobwebs. There's a saying, I'm going to get coochie cobwebs. So, I thought I had coochie cobwebs, spider in that motherfucker. They done laid eggs, put a seal on that bitch because, again, I hadn't had sex in years. So then, therefore, they were now attacking my preferences when I do have sex. And they were picking men. And I thought they were putting me in homes that had camera opportunities to watch you in your home, where under the hired ideology of the family, they could tell you what you might need through one of their structured students as a psychologist, psychotherapist, therapist who had a link to a pharmacy who might be able to give you a Wise or a motherfucking Green Good prescription, because nowadays you might not be going through Walgreens for those prescriptions, because I clearly thought that the state of Minnesota was giving you either the A flower, which had no THC in it, then they were liquefying things like Adderall, Abilify, Risperdal, and then they were spraying it on the weed, and then they were seeing how you reacted, which is what made me start dropping that shit off at, Hennepin County Medical Center. Then I dropped it off at Sheridan Clinic because I thought it could be laced. They said it might even be laced with fentanyl. I said, you needed to test it. They told me I was crazy at that time. And I said, no, if you want to combat the war on drugs, let's make sure Sharon's drugs ain't laced with something Sharon don't want. So let's test this shit. And they told me, no, I was crazy. They kicked me out that Hennepin County doctor's office. They also kicked me out that goddamn Sheridan Clinic. They did not take the 0.5 gram of weed I gave them to test under the theory, if it's laced and you want to combat the war, let's start with, the biggest person who would be putting this shit out, not the little people. I'm not worried about the little people, because in theory, when they said they did that $7 billion bust, them people are now in control of what goes on in my neighborhood because they assigned a dollar amount like they peddled it on the street. Now, I didn't know that they peddled it on the street because I never seen a government official sell me no weed. But in theory, they could tell me how much it's worth on the street. That meant that somebody had to tell them how much it's worth on the street and be able to look at that big warehouse full of weed and say, oh yeah, that's about $7 billion worth of weed right there, because you got the hydro right here, then you got the Thai stick right here, then you got the skunk weed over there, then you got your mids right here. This shit been sitting here for so long, it probably got mold on that shit. Weed does get mold because you might have a leak in your building where the water's getting in on my weed, and now it's making a moisture in there. So the moisture is now fueling the bugs, and then the moisture is now getting on the leaves, and the leaves is turning moldy, and now my weed is moldy and I can't smoke it. I don't like moldy weed. I swear to God, when I smoke moldy weed, it makes me cough because I'm allergic to mold, right? So when I hit the moldy weed, I'd be like, oh, that's mold, because then my nose starts running, my eyes start itching. I be thinking that shit's done had mold on it. They be thinking I'm crazy, but I thought I was a weed connoisseur. So then I thought that when I was a weed connoisseur, and Tim Waltz, got on Sharon's Facebook page, and Sharon said, you know what? We are a non-criminal class of people. They should not be criminalizing us for weed nowadays, when any doctor who goes to a University of Minnesota medical school that has access to information could then look up marijuana in its original format and then sit there and look and say it causes these things like opiates, it causes these things like methamphetamines, it causes these things like crack cocaine. I wanted to look at that person, and I didn't want them to correlate the information. I wanted them to prove it, because I was a living example of somebody who smoked weed. And I never did those things, and I had been in many a meeting with these people. Not only had I been in many a meeting, I was never kicked out. I was never looked at as being on any type of drugs. And again, they never said that during the meeting I was on drugs, that I needed assistance. They never called the police, and then the police arrest me for being under the influence on drugs. Because you can be under the influence, which might make them want to UAU. It might make them want to get a hair sample. I wanted to get a hair sample because, like I said, when I was in Tanya Bransford's courtroom, remember Tanya Bransford presented that paper through Jacqueline Bullio, 2 sets of them. Jacqueline Bullio kept handing me papers on the way in the door. I said, that's not fair. I had an opportunity. I'm supposed to have opportunity to look at this shit you just gave me and have a defense when I go in here with this judge. And Judge Tanya Bransford said, no, you don't. I said, okay, well, if I'm not supposed to, Tanya Bransford, be able to look at this shit you just handed me at the door, I'm going to look at it while we go through this here court proceeding. And as I did that, things caught my eye, and as they caught my eye, I made her go on the record each time we went through a piece of paper that caught my eye, therefore holding Tanya Bransford and her seal that she used in that courtroom up to par, so then therefore I could go back after her, because I wasn't playing with her or any other judicial official. Color, blind me, using your seat, your seal, your sworn oath to uphold the law. If you were violating my rights in any way, shape, or form, Tanya Bransford, or again, those listings of things in my system that wasn't supposed to be there, Jacqueline Bullio, to be under Bobby Joe Champion, where him and Ilhan Omar might have a contract with 15 pharmaceutical companies, Linda Baker, and they're giving it to me through their private companies in their little personal stores, where I thought it was causing my behavior to be different. I said I wanted to sue them. And I said Ilhan Omar would owe me money because she was the congressional leader. She would be with Bobby Joe Champion, and they would have to sit down at a table and work out a monetary gain from me from this abuse that was, a simple lawsuit, right, Allie, as a student. Sharon really did say they discriminated against her son, who was in 4th through 8th, and then 8th through 12th, and then 12th through what? This day? Is he still in school? I'm asking. Did he pass the USIC test? Should he have been a worker at the USIC making a lot of good money right now? I don't know. I don't know. What about Safelite? Did he do a good job at Safelite? Huh? I'm just asking, were these things he could have did as a job? Or was Kim Ellison just, testing him out with Bobby and Keith and these, companies where they said they were discriminating, and now that Mike's been there with his mom and they smoked weed while Mike was going to work, they don't have to deal with Mike anymore, but they'll deal with all these other people who don't have the job right now, who didn't show up on time smoking weed and probably wasn't clean, dressed, impressed, and passing them goddamn tests like my motherfucking son was. But again, are you going to take that flag down and put that weird-ass flag up? Because every time I look around and I think about that flag flying in certain places, I get the heebie-jeebies. I really do. That flag fucking scares me. It fucking, the one they want to replace that flag with, that flag fucking scares me.